What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Samsung Galaxy A56 5G. Now, this phone was launched a bit over 6 months ago, and I've actually had the phone sitting around for a bit, so I want to make this video to kind of go over how the phone is doing and if it's still a worthy option from Samsung. But with all that said, let's get started. So this is the Samsung Galaxy A56 5G. Now I feel like this phone is very underrated. We're getting premium materials, so we're getting metal on the sides, we're getting glass on the back of the phone, and that's something that you really don't find with Samsung's A series devices. So in many ways, this phone feels like a flagship smartphone. Now above this device, we do have the newly launched Galaxy S25 FE, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second here, but those two phones really do compete because the S25 FE really isn't much more expensive than the Galaxy A56 5G. Now this phone has had a very confusing rollout because the phone was launched globally back in March of 2025, and this is the global model of the phone, but then the phone wasn't launched officially in the US until later on in the summer. Now this color is known as Awesome Pink. This color never made it to the US, but if you are located in the US and you want this color, you can buy the global model of the phone like I did if that really is important to you. But I just wanted to go for this color just because it is a bit more unique, and it's not very often that we actually find A-series devices in pink. Now another confusing thing about this rollout is the distribution of this device in the US. So you can buy this phone factory unlocked at Best Buy or Samsung store. You can buy the phone for $499. It really hasn't received any discounts since being launched, but if you do trade in another device, I believe you can at least save some money. And if you do buy the global model of the phone in the US, you can also buy that for a bit cheaper. Now the global model is not offered at Best Buy or Samsung store, but you can find it at other places. The big surprise though is that the Galaxy A56 5G is not being offered at any carriers directly. Now in the US, that's the way that most people buy their phones, and especially for A-series customers, I feel like most people end up buying an A-series device because their carrier's offering it at a very big discount or a heavy promotion, where typically they can even get the phone for free if they're switching in from another carrier. And if you check right now, you'll see that the Galaxy S25 FE is being offered at the carriers, and that phone is being very heavily discounted. For example, at Cricket Wireless, you can get the S25 FE for just $199 with a service plan. Now the S25 FE is being offered at $649 for the full MSRP, so $150 more than this device, but at the same time, if you buy it through a carrier, you're paying way less than that. It's really hard to see why anybody in the US would pay the full unlocked price for the A56 5G, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Now in many ways, this phone does have a lot of the features that you're getting with the S25 FE, but at the same time, you're not getting that full flagship experience. The processor certainly is not as good, so performance is not as good. We are at least getting some Galaxy AI features with the A56 5G, which you can't find with other A-series devices, but there really is no comparison comparing this device to the S25 FE. Now I don't currently have the FE, I'm hoping to get it soon, but once I do, I will be doing a full comparison between this phone and that phone here on the channel. So I just want to get all that out of the way. I want to be a little bit more positive now for the rest of the video, and I do realize that my audience is located all around the world, so just because this phone isn't necessarily that worth it in the US doesn't mean that it's not worth it in your region, and you might even be watching this video far in the future and even buying this phone used, and if that's the case, then I think this phone will still be a good option for you because I have a feeling this phone is going to hold up very well as time goes on. It also helps too that the Galaxy A56 5G is going to be getting a lot of support from Samsung into the future, as they have pledged to give this phone up to 6 years of major Android software updates, which I know is a big selling point, and I have a feeling that this phone won't even last, at least physically last, beyond 6 years, so this phone will be updated pretty much through its entire lifespan, because batteries just don't last that long. I really just can't see how this phone would even last for 6 years, so it's just at least good that the software will remain very fresh. But anyway, with all that said, this phone, as I mentioned, does have some really awesome hardware. So we're getting a very large 6.7-inch display, but this display looks excellent due to the Super AMOLED panel that we're getting here with the device. So we're getting really good colors, great viewing angles as well. This really is a great looking display. As far as it being compared to a flagship device, I would say it's pretty much on par with that. We are getting a very fast 120Hz refresh rate with the phone, and the processor in this device has no issue powering the phone, and especially when it comes to the phone running smoothly. This phone does currently have One UI 7, hopefully sometime, at least sooner than later, it will be getting One UI 8. And One UI 7, if you haven't tried it yet, is a major upgrade compared to previous versions of One UI. I feel like this is the first version of One UI that truly gets me excited to use Samsung software, and it really is a much better experience compared to stock Android. Now this display is 1080p, everything does look very crisp and clear. We're getting a PPI of 385, we're getting a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio, so a narrow but tall form factor, and we're getting an 87.7% screen to body ratio. So we are getting very small bezels all throughout here on the device. Now the bottom bezel is slightly larger than the side bezels, but it really doesn't make a difference or is even a problem at all. And it just really is a nice looking phone. In the hand, as I mentioned, it feels very premium due to it having metal on the sides, and that's definitely going to result in this phone holding up really well for a long time. Now up top here, we do have a hole punch for the front-facing camera, and that front camera is 12 megapixels. Now one of the things this phone is lacking with is the internal storage, because we are getting just 128 gigabytes, which I feel like for many people, 128 is pretty decent, but we are starting to see more and more budget and low-end phones, not to mention mid-rangers, starting off with 256. So I do wish that it did come with a bit more storage, but just look at how much storage you're using right now on your current device, and then from there you can decide if 128 is enough for you. Now unfortunately with this device, there is no microSD card expansion, so you are truly limited at just 128 gigs, so again, that could be a problem potentially. Now unfortunately, there is no wireless charging with this device, which I really wish it had, but also compared to the S25 FE, that device does have wireless charging, so like I mentioned earlier in the video, that phone isn't too much more expensive than this device, and if you are in the US, you might even be able to pick up the FE for less money than this phone, and we are gaining that feature. Now with this device, we are getting an in-display fingerprint sensor, so it is decently fast and responsive. I mean, overall, it's not a problem at all, so I wouldn't say it's slow. And then up top here, we do have face unlock with the front-facing camera. Now with this device, we are getting a triple camera setup, and this is kind of Samsung's newer look for the camera module, so I definitely think it looks nice. But we're getting a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. Now here's how things look on the camera app. This is with the main rear camera right now. Now keep in mind that by default, it doesn't actually capture images at 50 megapixels, it does 12 megapixels instead. So just tap up there and it'll switch it over to 50 megapixels. But it's certainly a nice main camera on the phone. You can see how crisp and clear this photo of this plant looks, so we really are getting a lot of detail. And as I mentioned, we are getting a lighter version of Galaxy AI, and especially in the gallery here, because other A series phones don't even have this icon here for the stars, even if the phone is running One UI 7. But in this situation, if you tap there, it is a different interface compared to the S series, but you can do object eraser, and I'm not totally sure even if this is as good as the object eraser on the flagships, but I'll erase this plant, for example. I'll go to erase. You can see it did detect it. And yeah, I mean, it did remove it, but I do feel like on the flagships, it would have made this perfect instead of kind of giving us this kind of strange look where you can clearly tell the image was edited. Now from here, we can go over to 0.5 for the ultra wide camera. And with that, we can fit a lot more content into a single frame. We can go over to the More tab to access the macro camera, so you can get very close up and have things be in good detail there. I'm not sure if the macro camera is really worth it compared to the telephoto, which you are getting a telephoto camera with the FE, so just another example of why the FE might make a little bit more sense compared to the A56 5G. Now if we go over to video mode, we can take 4K video with the rear camera as well as the front-facing camera. So there's me right there, and you can see we do indeed have 4K video. And then we can take portrait selfies. We can crop out a little bit for a group selfie. You can do portrait mode with the rear camera, of course, as well. And then for selfies, you can take standard front-facing selfies too. So lots of different options here with the device, at least when it comes to the cameras. So definitely if you're looking for an A-series phone with decent cameras, then the A56 5G might be one that you might want to consider. Now internally here with the device, we're getting 8 gigabytes of RAM paired up with Samsung's Exynos 1580 processor. Now overall, that's a very good configuration. Like I mentioned, this phone runs smoothly. It doesn't heat up or get warm or anything like that. And even when booting the phone up, that process is very smooth as well. So it's not a bad chipset, but if you do want to compare it to a premium Qualcomm chipset or a flagship chipset from Qualcomm, it's certainly nowhere near the same experience. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got. So I got a single core score of 1356 and a multi-core score of 3840. So I do recommend running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to see how the Galaxy A56 5G does compare to what you currently have. Now with this device, we're getting a 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, and what is awesome is that this phone does support up to 45 watt fast charging, which means this phone can go from 0 to 65% in just 30 minutes, which is actually very impressive. This phone does charge faster than the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and that phone was actually just upgraded on its charging speeds. With this device, we're also getting NFC, so you can use it for tap and pay. We're also getting an IP67 dust and water resistance rating, and we are getting stereo speakers, so you're getting audio out of the main speaker on the bottom, and then the earpiece as well, when you're doing things like listening to music or watching video content, which does make a big difference. Now taking a closer look at the hardware, on the right side here we have volume up, volume down, and the power button. On the left side of the device, there's nothing. Up top, we have the noise canceling microphone. On the bottom of the phone, we have the slot for the SIM card, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and we have the speaker, and that's pretty much it. Then on the back of the phone, it is a very simplistic design, but we're getting the Samsung branding right there, camera module, flash, and that's all. But overall, I do think the Samsung Galaxy A56 5G is holding up very well after 6 months. This phone will definitely be one that you'll want to keep your eye on for a long time. As I mentioned, this phone will be getting many new versions of Samsung's One UI and future versions of Android as well, so it will be very well updated into the future. So this phone is likely to remain a very reliable option. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. But this is Kevin here. This is the Samsung Galaxy A56 5G, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.